Sometimes we get asked the question, why Brazil?
You know, really, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, just before we arrived in Brazil, there were terrible abuses being carried out against children. When we arrived in Brazil, children were being perceived as a nuisance because they were pestering people on the streets and pickpocketing and robbing tourists, hurting businesses. And the solution they found was to go out and hire off-duty policemen and other people to exterminate these children. There was actually a systematic campaign of extermination being carried out against these children.
We know that there are millions of kids on the streets of Brazil. And when a child is on the streets, the statistics tell us they have 3 to 5 years of life, and that's it. And even those 3 to 5 years are just absolutely marked by every conceivable kind of abuse and exploitation. And we're losing here an entire generation of kids that do not understand what it means to have a family. There's no clue of what a family is. It's beyond their imagination. Family is a dangerous place for these children, not a place of safe haven.
You know, these children have not had the opportunity to be children.
Our kids are true street kids, or kids that have been taken by the authorities out of the home because of abuse, or kids that have been prostituted and the police have picked them up. That's where our kids are coming from. It's not just that our kids are poor or that our kids are hungry. Everybody here is like that. Those kids aren't eligible for hope. Our kids are the true street children. But they come here, they get an education, they discover what it means to be family. One of the things that we talk about is their lives become normal. They get up in the morning, they take a shower, they clean up their rooms, they prepare, they go to school, they go play with their friends in the afternoon. They act like teenagers. And for these kids, that's really a miracle because they've never got to be kids before. They've never had the opportunity just to be normal. And that makes a real difference. And it's changing their lives. It's transformational.
So, these kids have lost their infancy. And so it's been able to restore their childhood. To be able to give these kids, one thing, a really important thing to me is to be able to give these kids a happy memory. I mean, can you imagine growing up without having a single happy memory from your childhood? And it's so important to be able to provide those memories because, when you're giving the kid that experience and that camp and that outing, it's not just a fun afternoon. You're giving him a memory. You're giving him something that's going to nourish him, that's going to sustain him for the rest of his life. And that's really, really powerful. And it goes back to helping those kids to be children for the first time.
They've never known anybody to care about them and love them and to embrace them in a way that is positive and to provide for them. And one of the neat things is to see the change that happens in their lives when they come and they get to hope. And it's not something that takes months and years to see happen. We often see it happen in 48 and 72 hours. All of a sudden, this child that had been afraid, because provision is being made for them and because their lives are being touched, and because there's just a wholesomeness to the place, these kids are seeing life in a different way. One of the neatest things that has ever happened to me since I've been at Hope was a couple of years ago. Philip and I were sitting in his office, and he had a letter that had been given to him by Camila the night before, one of our little girls. I say little girl, she's 14. And it was the most incredible letter I think I've ever read. And Philip was reading it aloud and translating it. He was reading, and it went something like this: Dear Uncle Philip, in our Bible study time this year, we've been talking about intimacy with God. And every day I pray, God, will you please show me your face? And I'm not sure exactly what Camila meant by that, But she repeated that line several times. She'd say, every day I would pray, God, please show me your face. And God wasn't showing me his face. And I would ask him, God, why don't you show me your face? And she said, I prayed this prayer and I prayed it and I prayed it. And then one day God said to me, but Camila, I do show you my face. I give you a warm place to sleep at night. I give you house parents that care about you. You're getting a good education. You're learning a skill that is going to carry you through life. And she says, Uncle Philip, I realized that everywhere that God said he was showing me his face was a place that you've been involved in my life. And I realized that for me, you are the face of God. I mean, we both just lost it. What would that be like for one time in your life? Somebody to say to you, but for me, you are the face of God. And they're happy. You see these kids running and laughing and playing and turning flips on the playground. And you think, those are the same kids that were living under the underpass? That was a little girl whose father raped her every night? That was a teenager who was forced by her mother to turn tricks in the street? It's the same child, but it's not the same child because their lives have been transformed. For the kids of Brazil, for the kids that are on the street, we are their last chance. That's why we're in Brazil. We're in Brazil because we're the only chance these kids have.